Welcome back to the program. Couple of different things. First and foremost, I have a feeling that moving forward in 2025, the show is going to be a little bit more like you're seeing it right now, with a little bit less production, but of course always the great content. Why? Because I've decided now that sadly John has passed to divert those extra funds towards a publicist, full-time, and even social media marketing and things like that. I'm tired of living in purgatory, in the abyss, and I want to use these next 4 years with hopefully more freedom and more social media freedom to really expand, expound, and regrow my following. And of course, to get book sales, more interviews, more speaking engagements, and all that good stuff. So I've heard back from 2 out of the 4 publicists that I'm talking to, and I'm going to make a decision probably in the next week or so. So that was the first thing. The second thing is, it looks like we are stuck with Speaker Johnson, and I kind of gave you some ideas of why I think that is the case, at least for now. And I think it's pretty clear that we need to make sure that we don't have a prolonged speaker battle, which would, of course, then postpone President Trump's Make America Great Again agenda and his first 100-day target action. And we don't want that to happen. So yes, we have an extremely thin majority, but now we have Speaker Johnson. So I am hoping, and I haven't been able to verify this yet, but I'm working on it, that President Trump has had a come-to-Jesus moment with Speaker Johnson and basically laid down the law that you are going to do what we say. You're going to bring up the legislation that we propose, and you're going to make sure that you whip up the votes, even though he's not the whip, to make sure that we have the votes to pass election integrity, first and foremost, type of legislation right off the bat. So he will be on a very short leash. I believe they will be able to reconvene and look at this sometime in March or April, and at that point, possibly replace him if he's not doing his job. So I wish him nothing but the best, but we will be watching him like a hawk. And he has betrayed President Trump in the past, so I don't have a lot of confidence that he's not going to do it again. But hey, maybe it'll be a surprise, and he'll actually do his job. So we'll see what happens. The other thing I want to talk about is more about what's been going on and these attacks. And I know I've been covering that for the past couple of days, but I want to kind of expound on a couple things. Is it possible that what happened with the Cybertruck explosion, is it possible that that was another Ryan Wesley Routh? Routh, as you all know, is the one that tried to shoot President Trump through the bushes at Mar-a-Lago. And why do I say that? Well, because the connections and the ties of Routh to Ukraine and being pro-Ukraine clearly show what his motivation was. He hated Trump because Trump was against the funding of the Ukraine war. And what was he doing? He was trying to recruit people as mercenaries and fighters to go to Ukraine. So why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because according to numerous military officials who know and knew Livelsberger, he was pro-Ukraine. And how do we know that? Well, we know that from some of his messages, number one, but we even know his t-shirt, which I'm going to put in the thumbnail. Look closely at his t-shirt that is circled, and you will see that he is literally wearing a t-shirt that translates to "Glory to Ukraine." But that's not all. It gets even crazier. According to some of his social media, there's evidence that Livelsberger was setting up recently retired U.S. Special Forces soldiers for military contracts to fight Russia in Ukraine. He even talked about it on his LinkedIn account, which, of course, is no longer up. But what does he say? He says, "I've got a top 18D, recently ETSD, who is looking for the right opportunity sent him your way, Livelsberger wrote, in a response to a hiring contract person in Ukraine. It then goes on to say, quick turn 30-day contract opportunities in Ukraine at $550 per day, lodging and travel provided. So what does that tell you? It tells you that a lot of these people are still out there. And a lot of these people are so pro-Ukraine that they are willing to not only die, but also to recruit people to continue the carnage in Ukraine. It's pretty insane. It's pretty insane. But it gets even crazier than that. And why does it get crazier? Well, because of this right here, which I'm going to play. Now, this is from the Sean Ryan show, and he is talking to somebody by the name of Sam Shumate, who I would assume is a military contractor official and has inside information. And these are some of the things that he is talking about. Number one, there is a manifesto from Matthew Livelsberger, okay? I have part of it. I don't have the full thing, but I have part of it. But this guy gets on this show and explains even in more detail about what his thought process was.
Do you want to read the email?
Yep. So this email came in on December 31st at 10:42 a.m. That is Tuesday. He said, in case I do not make it to my decision point or onto the Mexico border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this until 1 January and keep my identity private until then. First off, I am not under duress or hostile influence or control. My first car was a 2006 black Ford Mustang V6 for verification. What we have been seeing with drones, he puts that in quotes, he says drones, is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems powered aircraft by most recently China and the East Coast, but throughout history, the U.S. Only we in China have this capability.
That's why I said from the beginning that I believe that these are foreign adversaries, and I said that they were either Chinese or Iranian. I know that some people have also said that they are the United States. Is that possible? Yeah, certainly it is, because our fake, illegitimate, on the way out government is Chinese-centric. They have given up this country to China. So this begs this question. How many more military people and officials and military veterans have been put under the control of the Chinese Communist Party and are actually doing their bidding for them? Now, clearly this guy was pro-Ukraine. He says that he wasn't a Trump hater. He goes on to say a little bit more in detail on that. But remember, as I've pointed out, there are 5 Iranian assassination teams, probably all being funded by China. And these drones and the technology, only the United States and China would have that technology. Which is, again, why I am saying that President Trump must not do an outside inauguration.
Our OPCEN, that's Operations Center, our OPCEN location for this activity is in the box below. China has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it is just a show of force, and they are using it similar to how they use the balloon for SIGINT and ISR, which are also part of the integrated comms system. There are dozens of those balloons in the air at any given time. The so what is because of the speed and stealth of these unmanned aircraft. They are the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed.
What have I said for years? Which is why I've been attacked by the CCP, my website and everything else. China is the greatest existential threat to not just the United States, but to all of humanity. And I stand by that.
They basically have an unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted. It's checkmate. U.S. government needs to give the history of this, how we are employing it and weaponizing it, how China is employing them and what the way forward is. China is poised to attack anywhere in the East Coast. I've been followed for over a week now from likely Homeland or FBI, and they are looking to move on me and are unlikely going to let me cross into Mexico.
Okay, let me pause it there. This is, remember, this is I guess you could call it a suicide note or whatever it was to other people that he knows that are in the military. And he's literally saying exactly what I've been saying. That they can attack at any point, at any direction, anywhere on the East Coast. And yes, that means that they could use these drones that are flying around in our skies against us. And guess what? The Democrats and the Biden regime are allowing it to happen. That's right. I'm saying it publicly. They are complicit. They are 100% complicit in this. And this is why President Trump needs to scrap the inauguration 100%, because I feel he is in mortal danger if he is going to go out there and do this. And I pray I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong, do a show and say, hey, I got that wrong. Thank God I got that wrong. Okay? But it's my job to point these types of things out. And when I get certain intelligence, when I get certain feelings, when I get certain kind of like, spidey sense coming up, I'm going to tell you. And I don't care if I'm wrong or right, because most of the time I am right.
But won't, because they know I am armed and I have a massive...
He also says in this that the FBI, which is why they are the enemy within and cannot ever be trusted, at least not until they are completely destroyed and rebuilt. But he's saying that he's being trailed and spied on, and he knows this because he is a high-level security individual who has contacts in our government, and whistleblowers have told him that, and he was going to be a whistleblower. And the FBI has been trailing him. So who knows? Maybe the FBI killed Livelsberger, planted the gun on him. Who knows at this point? I don't believe anything that the media says.
VBID. Let me pause right there for a second. So he says a massive VBID. When I was talking to the FBI yesterday, they didn't know what a VBID was. I had to explain what that acronym meant, literally.
You fucking serious?
Dead serious. I said it twice, and he goes, you said that word VBID. Can you tell me what that is? For your audience,
I will admit I don't know what it means. I'm not in the military. I never have been, so I don't know what it means. We're going to find out together.
VBID, for your audience who has not been in the GWOT for the last 20 years, a VBID is a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. In layman's terms, a car bomb, what we saw at Trump Tower. So, backing up, he says, I am armed and have a massive VBID. I've been trying to maintain a very visible profile and have kept my phone, and they are definitely digitally tracking me. Here's where he gets into the other stuff, and this is where we had to redact the names. Well, your producer redacted the names. I have knowledge of this program and also war crimes that were covered up during airstrikes in Nimruz province, Afghanistan in 2019 by the admin, DOD, DEA, and CIA. I conducted targeting for these strikes of over 125 buildings. 65 were struck because of civcas, that's civilian casualties, that killed hundreds of civilians in a single day. U.S. FORA continued strikes after spotting civilians on initial ISR. It was supposed to take 6 minutes and scramble all aircraft in CENTCOM. The UN basically called these war crimes, but the administration made them disappear. I was part of that cover-up with U.S. FORA, an agent, redacted, of the DEA. So I don't know if my abduction attempt is related to either. I worked with, redacted, IO staff on this as well as the response to Bala Murghab. Redacted commander at the time, redacted can validate this. You need to elevate this to the media so we avoid a world war because this is a mutually assured destruction situation. Then he says, for vetting, my LinkedIn is Matt Berg or Matthew Livelsberger, an active duty 18 Zulu out of 110, that's 1st Battalion 10th Special Forces Group. My profile is public. I have an active TSSCI with UAP, USAP access.
What is USAP? Do you know what that is?
I don't know what that is. But I checked his credentials on LinkedIn. So that was the first thing I did. I went to his LinkedIn page. First thing I noticed was all of his bona fides were in place. He has all the UAS training from USASOC and everything else. And so I said, okay, at least the guy knows what he's talking about with drones. That was a very rough dig into the guy. But my issue was I couldn't validate or verify any of this information. And I told him that. And how I responded to him was in a subsequent email. I said, this is obviously a very big deal, but I don't have anything to verify this information with. Talking about gravitic propulsion systems without evidence just makes me another UFO talking head. Like, I'm not going to go on my social media page and start talking about UFOs and anti-gravity systems and everything. I don't know what you're talking about. I can't. And he said, can I get on Fox News Contact on Signal as well as Sean's show? Hegseth would be good too. That was his last message to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, what is a gravitic propulsion system?
To be honest,
he doesn't know. So that gives you a little bit more background, okay? Now, apparently, from what I gather, there is somewhat of a manifesto. I clearly don't have all of it, but I do have some of it, and some of it is pretty chilling. Do I have glasses in here? Yeah, I do have glasses in here. Don't laugh at me. They're ugly and red. Anyway, this was not a terrorist attack. It is a wake-up call. Fellow service members, veterans, and all Americans, it is time to wake up. We are being led by weak and feckless leadership who only serve to enrich themselves. We are the United States of America, the best country and people to ever exist. But right now we are terminally ill and headed towards collapse. This was not a terrorist attack, it was a wake-up call. Americans only pay attention to spectacles of violence. What better way to get my point across than a stunt with explosives and fireworks? Why did I personally do this now? I need to cleanse my mind of the brothers that I've lost and relieve myself of the burden of the lives I took. I'd like to just also expand and emphasize that these are just excerpts. And then it goes on to say, we're intending to release these initial letters so people can understand as best that they can what this person's thought process was at that time. And then it says, we still have a large volume of data to go through and a lot more content to go through. As you know, with any of our devices, there are thousands, if not millions, of videos, photos, documents, web history, and all of those things that need to be analyzed. That was according to the Las Vegas Assistant Sheriff Dory Corin is the person's name. So that is pretty chilling to say that it's a wake-up call. The family has come out and said that he didn't have any issue with Trump, that he didn't hate Trump, that he hated the regime in power. And he did have an ex-wife who was a rabid Trump hater and leftist. And from what I can gather, that might have been one of the reasons they split up. So I'm not saying that he wasn't a Trump hater, but I'm also not saying that he was a Trump hater either. I really don't know at this point. He's saying it's a wake-up call. So it's very strange to say this is not a terrorist attack, it's a wake-up call. This is obviously somebody with a lot of military experience, knew what they were doing, and if they did, and again, I don't believe they did, because as I said last night, if he quote-unquote shot himself in the head with a .50 caliber Desert Eagle, which puts a hole almost the size of, like, I don't know, maybe half the size of a shotgun to your head, but yet they said that the body was burned beyond all recognition. Well, then how do they know that there was even a gunshot wound to the head? Just because they found a gun that was all blown up? I don't know. Something doesn't sit right. The other thing that I've been talking about is this. What if, again, this illegal regime that hopefully is on its way out and isn't going to do anything drastic at the end to stay in power, they are Chinese-centric. They are owned and operated by the Chinese, okay? The government for the last 4 years has been run in America by Xi Jinping. That's a fact. That's not opinion, that's hearsay. That is a fact. Why do we know that? Well, pretty simple. They let the balloons traverse last year all around the entire country, and they've let, I don't know how many drones, hundreds, maybe thousands of drones in our sky. They would be able to take that out. They would be able to tell China, don't do that. They would be able to shoot those down. But they're not. They're not because they're complicit. They are complicit in all of this. And so my thought immediately went to the Bourbon Street New Year's Eve attack. The media immediately has come out and said that this was a Muslim extremist. Yes, he was Muslim. If you've seen video of him, though, talking, he seems, pretty reasonable. He doesn't seem radicalized. So we know that the media is owned by the CCP. All the global media is, basically. And because of that, what if they set a narrative? What if they went into the house because they were given access to the house in Houston and they put Qurans around and prayer rugs around to make him seem like, and even put that ISIS flag on the truck? Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, Josh, that's pretty insane to think that the media could do something like that. Well, not really. Not when they're being controlled and told a narrative by the CCP, by a foreign adversary. See, this is the type of thinking that you're always going to get here, outside the box where you didn't even think about certain things. That's how I built my career, and that's how I'm going to continue to do these types of shows. But it's pretty scary to know that these things happen simultaneously, and as I've already said, there is a connection. These two knew each other. They were at Fort Bragg in North Carolina together. They had the same exact app used to rent these vehicles, and they're both ex-military. So my question is, how many more Livelsbergers or Jabbars are there out there right now? When is the next one going to self-implode? God forbid, running into people and killing them, or going to a Trump event and blowing themselves up and blowing people up. We don't know. We don't know the answer to that. But I'm going to read you something by a very, very intelligent person. His name is Katchelman, and I've seen his writings before. He's very, very smart. And what he's talking about here is the fake, and I want you to understand what I'm saying here, the fake surrender of the 2024 election. Okay? Now, what do we mean by that? We mean that we, MAGA, Americans, patriots, we think that the left is defeated, dejected, demoralized, depressed. We think all of that. And rightfully so, because we saw the results of the election. But what he says is anyone that thinks that they are defeated is sadly mistaken. Listen to this. Beware of driving men to desperation. Even a cornered rat is dangerous. Winston Churchill. In the context of war, perfidy is a form of deception where one side promises to act in good faith with the intention of breaking that promise. It is a breach of law and degrades expected protections. It is an act of utter selfishness. It is a betrayal to every principle that safeguards civility. It is a fake sincerity. It embraces symbols and verbiage, religions, cultures, etc., that mask the hypocrisy, seeking to undermine and destroy. Thus, one sounds and looks as if he supports and accepts the stated position, but in reality is bitter, resentful, and revengeful. During the Pacific theater of World War II, the Imperial Japanese Army would disguise their installations and transportation with protective signs such as the Red Cross, booby trap their dead and wounded soldiers, and do fake surrenders in order to injure, lure, and kill Allied troops into surprise attacks. Many examples of Japanese perfidy are documented. The Gedage Patrol during the early days of the Guadalcanal campaign in 1942. The Americans were led to believe in a surrender of the Japanese troops as a sighting of what the Americans believed to be a, quote, white flag, along with faulty intelligence from a captured drunken Japanese officer. This resulted in more than 25 U.S. combat deaths from the Japanese soldiers the Americans assumed would be surrendering. Perhaps the most familiar action is the concept of the kamikaze defenses, derived from the Japanese word kamikaze, which translates to divine wind. This form of defense involves intentionally crashing a manned aircraft into an enemy target, often resulting in the pilot's death and wish to destroy as many enemies as humanly possible. Such missions were shrouded with religious manipulation. Japan knew that it had suffered defeat, but evil still aimed to inflict as much maximum damage, causing significant casualties and destruction. Such foolishly demonstrated unwavering loyalty to a failed devotion. They believed they were sacrificing for the greater good, even though their actions brought destruction and chaos. History has shown and framed this as an act of desperation from catastrophic delusion, resulting in failure. Churchill's observations on the cornered rat aptly applies to politics as well. The November 2024 general election was heralded as an overwhelming mandate. The progressives, the rhinos, the deep staters, the establishment, and the legacy media talking heads were quick to walk back the election that proved the shift of the Democrat Party and the progressive lunacy. They found it easier to deny the shift than to explain what had happened. Some are applauding the demise of the axis focused on fundamental changes to our nation's republic. Citizens of our republic must realize the election was only the beginning of the fight. There must be a continued contact with elected representatives, reminding them that they are the voice of the constituents and have been elected to implement the will of the constituency and not the will of the majority leaders and politicians. What have I been saying? The second we knew President Trump flipped Pennsylvania and was going to win the election, I did the video and I said, now the battle begins. That's exactly what Ketchelman is talking about. Now the battle begins. The first battle was when we were trying to get Senate Majority Leader Rick Scott rather than John Thune. We lost that one. We've also lost this House battle mainly because President Trump backed him. If President Trump didn't back him, he would not have had the votes. So again, that's not on us. That's on President Trump. He's going to reap what he sows if Johnson ends up being the big Johnson that we all know he is. But again, we didn't want to lose time, and we didn't want a protracted gavel fight. So that's kind of what happened. But now he's explaining that the real battle begins with us, me, you, activists, pounding on these people, pounding the phones, emails, whatever, social media, making sure that they do the will of the voters. Okay? He goes on to say some interesting things here. Be assured that these forces are at work seeking to deny these election results. They are eagerly trying to veto the electorate's desires. Here are just a few of the recent things that you can add to the list of what the left is trying to do. Incoming Majority Leader John Thune has a plan to defy President Trump regardless of the electorate's votes. Congress is being urged to foment an insurrection blocking President Trump from taking office, and not a single solitary legacy prostitute in the media is mentioning this at all. We are even hearing applause from the anarchistic intifadas in New York City only hours after Americans were killed in New Orleans and Las Vegas. We are also hearing reports of mandates and directives that will try to obstruct President Trump's agenda. An elected Congress remains silent as the wishes of we the people are being disrespected. Do not fall for the fake surrender of November 5th, 2024. Those opposed to the November elections mandate are not even hiding their contempt for the electorate. Schumer and Jeffries are on record as launching opposition and wielding their evil machinations of the political machinery to deny the voters their desires. Thune and Johnson equivocate, they flip-flop, they vacillate. All four provide no assurance that the citizens' we the people wishes are going to be legislated. These obstructionists to the electoral mandate are following the catastrophic delusion and failures of previous fake surrenders. The results will not change. Those following the directives of Schumer, Jeffries, Thune, and Johnson, disrespecting the electorate's mandates, are following the political piper into the vanquished oblivion of failed politics. History will frame them as people acting from desperation, bringing catastrophic delusion and multiple failures, while their handlers will rationalize to avoid personal responsibility. The respected Methodist missionary Eli Stanley Jones observed, quote, "A rattlesnake, if cornered long enough, will become so angry that it will indeed bite itself. That is exactly what the harboring of hate and resentment against others is, biting of oneself. We think that we are harming others and holding spite and hates, but the deeper harm is to ourselves." A comment by Isaac Madengu. I'm a historic individual. I'm not sure who they are. Quote, "I have discovered that my enemies are more dangerous wounded than they are well. They have more fight when they are hurt, and that is when they are more dangerous rather than when they are healthy. Never underestimate the strength of a wounded person, wounded emotionally, spiritually, mentally, or otherwise. Never underestimate the evil of those involved in a defeated political position or party. The defeated party or politician, the threatened bureaucrat, and all consumed with hate towards the, quote, other side, only devolve further into angry retaliation and, yes, even violence. They cannot admit that they were wrong. Their pride guarantees their great fall. History chronicles will frame them as insignificant, insipid failures. The fake surrender of the politicians and the Democrats and the establishment and the rhinos attempting to dodge or impede the electorate's mandate from November 5th, 2024 cannot be accepted. These are wounded, and they have wounded our nation. Because of them, our nation now has been emasculated with an FBI that bows down to compliance, to DEI, and its leadership is incapable of fidelity, which is what it's supposed to be, and commitment to the rule of law. Its purpose now only provides a facade of protection. Our nation has a military surrendered, that's right, surrendered to gender confusion and more concerned about pushing pantyhose and mascara on men rather than protecting our national security interests. Our nation now hosts a political governing by inept narcissists instead of a consistent and cohesive governing by the nation's constitutional rule of law. Be aware of the contempt and the dastardly mission of those pretending to be surrendering to the mandate resulting from the November 5th, 2024 elections. Remember this when in 2 years, this electorate once again goes to the polls to elect those who represent, hopefully, we the people. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the fact that the establishment, the rhinos, the Democrats, hell, the majority of the Republicans, they don't care about your vote. They don't care. Clearly they don't care. They just put Johnson in. They just put Thune in. They just did that spending bill. Johnson almost put trillions of dollars to kneecap President Trump for 6 to 8 months. Thank God people stepped up and said, hell no. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. We are inconsequential to them. They are angry, pissed off, and revengeful. And they want retribution. And one way they're going to do it, or try to do it, is they're going to try to stop President Trump's agenda. I do not want anyone watching my show to think that President Trump is just going to sail through and get every single thing he wants done. It's going to be a fight every single fucking day. Are you ready for that fight? Because I know that I sure as hell am. And I will be here every single day to make sure that these people actually do surrender. And it will be us, the grassroots, that force the will of these politicians to facilitate the mandate given by President Trump from we the people. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.